Talking to Dr. KWong from Vanderbilt University, and the issue is the Center on School Choice. And of course, Dr. Wong, before we had our first commercial break, and some of the issues attended to that first commercial break, we promised that we'd give you an opportunity to talk about the center itself. I think we've already indicated that this center is a $10 million investment by the federal government in Vanderbilt University over a 5-year period. And let's talk about that center, about how it came into being.
Yes, it's a very important federal initiative in the historic context, and that is, this is really the first time that the federal government has invested $10 million for 5 years into a national research center that focuses on educational choice. Now, prior to that, I remember that back in the 1970s, the federal government funded some demonstration programs, and the most important of which was, of course, the Alum Rock school vouchers program in California. And that lasted for about 4 or 5 years. And what the demonstration program did was to support parental information and outreach. And what they found in that experimental program was that most of the parents, I believe 85% of the parents, decided to send their kids to the schools that are closer to home. So in other words, the vicinity, proximity of the school become a very important factor in the way parents choose schools for their kids. So along the way, from 1970s all the way to the 1980s, there have been numerous conversations in Congress as well as from Ronald Reagan administration to talk about how we could use some of the Title I money to support children to choose their schools. But most of the congressional initiatives and the Ronald Reagan initiatives have failed. And more recently, the push for school choice actually come about through state legislation rather than from the federal level. So across the country, we have over 40 states now, plus the District of Columbia, that have passed legislation on charter school. This is a very important initiative. As you know, this is publicly funded. They are known as publicly funded school, but the charter school themselves enjoy a lot of autonomy from the district administration. So they can hire and replace their teaching staff. They can go around the teachers' union requirements. They can develop their own curriculum. They implement the school improvement plan and student assessment plan. So now is the time that after the first charter school started in Minnesota back in 1992, now it's already 12 years. And I feel that the push for school choice as a school improvement, strategy, has organizationally matured to the extent that we would benefit with a more systematic analysis of what work, how school choice program work, and what are the consequences of charter school and other school choice programs on student performance, as well as on the existing public school system.
And too, Dr. Wong, is it true that these special schools, these chartered schools and these school choice schools, these schools take a pretty big piece of money out of the national budget itself, does it not? Could you speak to that?
The charter school, by definition, is still primarily state funded. And the state legislation, a typical state legislation would allow the charter school designers to take the state portion of the per pupil spending. So say if we have a total students spending in a given district in a different school, per pupil say $6,000. The state on average is providing $3,500, a little bit over 50%. And so they could take that $3,500 out of the $6,000 to start a charter school and then provide services based on that $3,500 per children. Now, the federal government has been quite generous in supporting what we call start-up activities. So if you and I are interested in starting a charter school in Nashville, Tennessee, we can seek for federal support, $50,000 per year, and also seek for some state support, $10,000 a year, to put together some people to help us think about what would be the curriculum and what would be a an organizational and educational plan for the charter school that we want to form. So the startup funds are there from the federal and the state.
Federal government is giving the seed money for this.
Exactly. But the operational funds would have to come from the per pupil spending that come from the state budget. Now, the local property tax do not come with the charter school. That's a different story, because right now there is still a lot of discussion with regard to full reimbursement or partial reimbursement on the charter school services. So what I'm seeing is that over 40 states in the District of Columbia now have charter. We've got about over 2,000 charter schools in the country. But if you think of the national landscape, we have a total of about 200,000 public schools. And 2,000 charter schools represent only perhaps 2% of all the schools in this country. So to me, this is a good experiment that needs more research, and that's why we want to create this center. And in thinking about the mission of this center, as I said, we would like to find out what works and under what circumstances do some charter schools actually work better than other charter schools. As you know, some of these labels, charter school or school choice, they're very broad labels. And it's the details, the operational details are extremely important. And those are the conditions that are going to make a difference. And on an average year, about 5% of the charter schools are actually running out of business. And for example, in California, most recently, we know that there are 60 charter schools that are going out of business. And so they've got 6,000 kids who have to go back either to their home, traditional public school, or seek other charter schools. So, but at a national level, about 5%, 4-5% of the charter schools actually go out of business. So it's slightly risky. But on the other hand, there are 95% of the charter schools that continue to go in reasonable shape. And some of them are actually creating the conditions that improve teaching and learning and create real alternative for parents and children who are in situations that they really want to get out of.
You know, I think, Dr. Wong, we're getting ready for the second commercial break within the next few seconds. And when we come back during this next segment, what we'd like for you to do is to look at some of the studies that you know of, and we're sure that you've dealt with, dealing with disadvantaged children. What are some of the best methods whereby we might be able to deal with these particular children?
Yes.
Of course, we'll be back with our audience following this short commercial break. Talking to Dr. Kenneth